Welcome into another edition of the FutureSox podcast. My name is Elijah Evans, joined by my co-host Jeff Cohen, and today we welcome on Kannapolis Cannonballers broadcaster Dan Helotie, frequent guest on our show. We've had Dan here a number of times. We love having Dan on. As we look back at the 2025 season, we're recounting kind of just everything from each level. We talked through some of our awards earlier this week, just who the standout players were in the entire organization. Today we will focus on the Cannonballers at the single A level, the lowest affiliate of the White Sox organization. A lot of cool things to talk about there. So great to have Dan. And Dan, welcome in. It's good to have you, man.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on for what seems like the 14,000th time, but always good to be on, always a pleasure, and always a joy to talk baseball.
Yeah, we love welcoming you on. Jeff, what's up with you? I know it's been a little while since we've done a show together too.
Yeah, man, it's nice to catch up with you again, Elijah. I want to just kick things off by thanking Dan because all those interviews I do from Kannapolis, Dan's the guy who makes it all possible. So, Dan, let me just say in front of all the many people who are watching this, I appreciate all your hard work. I know it's an extra thing in your day, but I appreciate it.
No, definitely. It's a joy, and I get to do it. I don't have to do it. It's something that I really appreciate. Appreciate the love. Again, something I get to do. I don't have to do it.
Yeah, we appreciate you. I think everybody, shout out to all of the White Sox minor league staff, broadcasters, etc. Because this was a fun season, and what we do at FutureSox would not be possible without Dan and all these other people that put this effort in. So focusing on just kind of this season, this is your fourth season, am I right, with Kannapolis? Mm-hmm. I thought I got it right. So fourth season with Kannapolis for you. Before we dive into players or anything like that, like how was just the season overall? Were the vibes like? I know obviously not quite as good of a season as last year in terms of on paper, but still a lot of really fun moments throughout the season.
Yeah, it was hard to match the success of 2024. I mean, coming up one game shy of winning the whole thing, you knew coming into 25 that it was going to be a tall task to replicate it. But the team really showed a lot of poise and a lot of good energy throughout the first half of the season, put themselves in some good winning spots going into the month of June. Really, it was one of those things where the team just kind of needed to tread water and stay steady. And then an 11-game losing streak happens, and it just feels like everything kind of falls apart from there. Second half energy comes through, and team's doing well, but team down in Myrtle Beach, the Pelicans, the Cubs affiliate, they went on a historic run in that second half of the season, and nobody was catching them. So really, it was one of those things where after the first half, it was like, okay, we're going to worry less about the playoffs and less about that energy, and just focus on the development side of things. There's a fine line in minor league baseball. You want to be focused on winning, but you also have that development aspect. So I think that this team really embraced the development side of things and just focused on individuals getting better. Last year, the emphasis was, okay, we're a team, we're a collective unit, we're going to work together and create that chemistry and create those wins. I think this year it was a little more of an individual aspect of, okay, I myself am trying to get better. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think that having that outlook in the end will develop you a little better long term.
Yeah.
Dan, Kannapolis had a new manager this year, and I'm curious to get your take on what you thought about Chad. I will say I tried to leave him alone, let him do his job. But when I did talk to him, he was so gracious and so helpful. And I will just want to point out one quick note about the end of the season. You recall Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
I sat down with them to do Sunday night after the Sunday night ball game. We sat down to do, and we probably talked for about 20 minutes in the break room outside the locker room, with the bus literally warming up outside the ballpark to take the Chad and the team on the road for a road game because Monday was Labor Day. And he was really patient, and I loved working with them. I'm curious your impressions.
Yeah, a fantastic leader. I think that's the best way you can describe Chad Pinder. Coming into this season, something that he had never done before. He'd never managed a ball club before, let alone had a coaching position. This was kind of where he got his feet wet in the coaching scheme of things in the White Sox organization, and I think he did a very great job. He's going to look into the record and say, wasn't as great a year, but consistently just day in, day out, so invested in this team. Asking me for stats and what does this mean and what can we do better here long term, just constantly reading into things. and learning how to become a manager. I think that was a big thing for Chad all season. And you kind of see as the year went on, he learned so much from the time that they stepped in here for opening day to the end of the season. It was almost night and day. I would say he did a really good job.
That's awesome. Do you feel like, so you mentioned earlier kind of this development focus and this angle of just everybody getting better on their own craft and becoming a better version of themselves. Do you feel like that's something that Chad, I think it's an organizational thing, of course, but do you think Chad had a little bit of just further emphasis on that with his players?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that some of that comes from his background of playing in the big leagues and getting drafted and being a top prospect and coming through the Oakland organization to being a seasoned MLB vet. He was there for 6-7 years, and that's one of the things that he came up through that org and developed his own story, and now he's in a position to help where he can. And I think that Chad is slowly becoming a better leader every day. You saw that throughout the year, but he took a lot of his experience of being in the big leagues into his everyday. One of the things that was really cool that we've seen in past years with Guillermo Quiros, with Pat Leland, but you really saw a lot more guys sitting with Chad in the cages, asking questions, picking brain, and just saying, "Hey, what is life like in the big leagues?" Because he was obviously in the big leagues for so long with the Athletics, and really a fixture of that lineup that you're going to get in the room with people that have been where you want to be, and you're going to ask questions. I know this thing or two about this recently, but just it's finding that experience and finding that mentorship. And I think he was a great mentor to a lot of these young guys this year.
That's awesome. That's what you want to hear from minor league coaches, especially, I think. In terms of the product on the field, what are the things that just stand out to you when you start to look at, the roster and just look at what happened in Kannapolis this season? You had a lot of change of players as you're used to because that's single A, right? You're going to get guys in and out all season. That's how it goes. What are some of the things that just initially stand out to you in terms of the product on the field this year?
Yeah, product on the field this year was impressive. I think that when the team got here from camp in March, April, you were impressed by the firepower of the prospects. You had Braden Montgomery, you had Caleb Bonemer, you had George Wolkow, you had all these top prospects. It was impressive. You see the guys coming through, Nick McLean, who we forget about because he got hurt a month into the season and obviously wasn't able to come back this year. But I think that a lot of that firepower early was exciting, and I think the offense really was able to find their footing early, and it stayed steady throughout the whole season. The pitching was always kind of the concern this year. I think that as the year went on, adding some guys helped, but the pitching was definitely kind of the rocky point of this team throughout the season. Whereas in years past, I feel like the pitching was the emphasis, whereas the bats weren't coming around. It's playing that complementary style of baseball that is going to win you games here at the single A level, and you can't really have one good without the other. This year it was the bats that kind of stood out more than the arms, but that being said, that doesn't discredit anything of some of these top prospects and these young firepower righties that came in and definitely impressed late.
Yeah, definitely.
Dan, you touched on the development aspect of a low A, which is the bread and butter of it all. But and one guy in particular I want to talk about is George, because you had commented to me how much the White Sox are working with him during the day, but well before the game that night. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, spent a lot of time with George this season, just in the plain aspect of, I had a lot of people looking to see what he's doing on a daily basis. He was part of a documentary series with Chicago Sportsnet over the summer, so getting to interact with him with that and everything, just seeing all the work that he does every day, it's super impressive to see what he's doing on a day in, day out basis. Very mature for his age. I mean, he's 19 years old and already is talking like a well-seasoned vet in this game of baseball. And I think that George really showed his ability to complement his game. Everybody knows the power and everybody knows the prowess at the plate for George. But this year, I think he was an opportunity for him to learn and to find ways to complement his game stole more bases than he ever had this season. Really found his way in the outfield, played a little bit of all three outfield positions, which is huge. Having a 6'7" center fielder is definitely not the norm unless you're up in New York, but that was really cool to see. Seeing George kind of develop into a more full, more complete baseball player was really exciting to see. We know the power is there, but his emphasis this year was the power on top of the contact, the defense, learning how to become a five-tool player.
Yeah. Do you feel like you saw that kind of just that evolution step where the numbers, right? Like the numbers don't pop off the page for George, right? And I think everybody's aware of that. You look at it and you say, oh, it was it wasn't necessarily a step forward in a metric sense, but do you feel that going into next season, he is a significantly better baseball player than he was in 2024? Because while that power numbers on surface level last season really stood out, this year I do feel like going into the year you see a player with a more well-rounded future as he looks towards his next steps.
Right. I mean, you're going to look at the numbers for George and you're going to see batting average is kind of low, strikeouts are kind of high, but his K rate's down from what it was last season. You're looking at his walk numbers. You're looking at his stolen base numbers. You can't really measure too many defensive metrics easily. I mean, you can look at putouts and errors, but you can't really see in a statistical sense of what he's doing. So that, and also just the notion of his youth. I think that I was talking to him about this not long ago. I said, hey, you're 19 years old. Just to put it bluntly, he left high school a year early and had a full ride to South Carolina to go play in the SEC. And the notion of him being 19 years old, would you rather struggle in A-ball or would you rather struggle in the SEC? Because if you struggle in the SEC, you might get benched. You might not get the playing time.
Might not get drafted.
Whereas in single A, you're going to get those opportunities. They're still put in the lineup, and you're going to get a chance to be better. So I think that the story of George Wolkow's season comes down to the growth and the maturity to say, okay, the power numbers are going to be there, but maybe some of the other numbers aren't as pretty. Still putting in the work, still doing what he can to complete his game. And to be so young while doing that is wildly impressive. I'm still very much high on George Wolkow's future.
The way I described it, Dan, was simply saying it's hard to quantify, but the at-bats look so much more competitive. And when he had two strikes, you knew he wasn't going to miss a slider by 18 inches like he did last year. That he still had a fighting chance of doing something with two strikes, whereas a year ago that wasn't the case. So that's kind of how I quantify his season. He made progress. Just the only question is, can he keep it going?
Yeah, and I think one of the other things too that you can look at his season with is a lot of those strikeouts. It'd be tough to look into it, and I probably should look into it, but how many of those were looking versus swinging? Is he making good swing decisions? Is he making those choices at the plate where it's a 3-2 count? If he lays off a fastball that's upstairs, then it might be a strike, it might not be. But how many of those is he just trying to work on his eye at the plate? And that's something that the White Sox are very passionate about, is swing decisions. And you saw George mature in that this year. So very excited for his future. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch what he can do.
Yeah. Talking about some of the other guys that really stood out at the level, obviously not necessarily guys that spent the whole season there, but the two names that immediately jump out to me as just the biggest rise in stock this season from what they did in Kannapolis. You had Christian Opper at the beginning of the season, who only spent about a month there, but I think we talked like the second week of the season, or the first week of the season, when he threw in that scrimmage, even the FutureSox showdown, and it was like, okay. And that second, he made 2-3 starts, and it was like, all right, there's something here, ends up in Winston by May. And then Caleb Bonemer on the flip side is a guy who spent the majority of the season in Kannapolis, had a couple ups and downs, but generally speaking, shattered all expectations for his first professional season. What can you say about just those two and the makeup they have and just the growth they showed at Kannapolis?
Yeah, I mean, Christian Opper obviously just lit up radar guns while he was here, and that was super fun to watch. Seeing what he could do at the FutureSox showdown in March up in Winston-Salem, throwing 97, 98, and then drastic break with that curveball down 72, 73. It's gross. It's really fun to watch. Just a guy that knows what he can do, And I think part of that translated to his game this year of he knows he's got a fastball. He knows he's got a curveball that is devastating. And I think that seeing the progression of what he can do every game was really fun to watch. Didn't have him for as long in the season, but it was well deserved. He was ready for Winston-Salem, and obviously he's going to be a name to watch for a long time in the organization. Caleb was here for all but 2 weeks of the season. As you said, highs, lows. I would constitute that as a normal baseball season. I mean, you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, you're going to have periods where you just cannot get the ball out of the infield. You cannot make contact to save your life sometimes. But I think Caleb stuck through it. That's the biggest thing. Coming from Michigan, where it's 40 degrees until May, where he didn't get to play a lot of college baseball, didn't play a lot of high school baseball, excuse me. He was committed to go to Virginia, but drafted out of high school. So getting to play baseball for as long as he did this summer was very impressive, and he was able to, really find his footing even through some struggles. Immediately what jumped out to me is he's 19 and another guy that's just so mature and handles himself very well, doesn't get too high or too low on himself, and really is not necessarily going to be the clubhouse guy, the clubhouse leader, but a guy that everyone embraces as this is our guy.
Dan, what'd you think about his defense at short?
Very impressive. Very impressive. I was very content with him at short. They stretched him out to third base a couple times too, which was interesting. I think he's more happy at short, and they're developing him a little more at short. That being said, I don't think he's lost at third base. So interested to see what's to come over next season and beyond of how they continue to develop him, whether as a shortstop, as a third baseman. But he fits the shortstop profile very well.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's interesting to look at with him because it's a guy who was kind of like penciled as like, oh, he's going to be a third baseman by a lot of people coming into the draft. And also a guy that, I talked about this on the show earlier this week. Like he was looked at as a power first, probably third baseman. And it's so interesting now that we're a year out and he's got an incredibly good approach for a 19-year-old prospect, looked very comfortable at shortstop, and also still has that power that you're seeing him get into more and more. Like it went from like this like really standout 2 to 3 tool prospect to a guy that like looks like he could be average or better at pretty much all 5 tools at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the emphasis too with a lot of these guys. You talk about George Wolkow earlier. You talk about Caleb Bonemer currently. Bonemer was never, over the course of the season, from what I noticed, never was too worried about putting the ball over the fence. The emphasis with the White Sox and with their hitting coordinators and all the minor league rovers and everything that we hear when they come to town is exit velocity, which getting good contact. Exit velocity is going to measure your contact and your ability to do that. But then also the launch angle of not necessarily getting too under the ball, because that's going to help you launch and get home runs, but also it's just making sharp contact. If you hit a ball at 95 miles an hour at, say, I don't know, a 12-degree launch angle, it's a line drive right back at somebody, and it's going to be tough to defend that. So the emphasis is hitting the ball hard, putting the ball in play, and making the defense earn outs, because that's really what is going to win you baseball games. And you saw that a lot from Caleb Bonemer. He wasn't necessarily worried about driving the ball over the fence every single time. The power showed up this year, but the emphasis is putting the ball in gaps and letting the defense go to work.
And it's interesting, Dan. I found it fascinating that in the last few weeks, you can speak more exactly about when this showed up. But the last few weeks on the scoreboard during batting practice, they were flashing the exit velo, the hitting velos, exit velos, and the launch angle. So you could see it for every swing during batting practice. So clearly that's the emphasis.
Yeah, I mean, that's been there all season. It was really an emphasis when I think that it was like, we can do that, by the way. Let's go ahead and put that on the board. But that's always something they're keeping an eye on during batting practice. it's one of those. It's like, oh yeah, we have the technological capabilities to do this here in Kannapolis. We can throw it on the board using the TrackMan device.
Might as well, right?
Yeah, might as well. I mean, if it helps our guys, then it helps our guys. So that's
Yeah.
what we're here to do.
One of my favorite shouts from you when we talked to you preseason was a guy who is, I don't think he's super talked about on the pitching side of things, but Luis Reyes is 4 years younger than pretty much every other pitcher that you had throwing significant innings this season in Kannapolis. So with him, like the numbers weren't great, but when you pointed him our way kind of in the spring, I'd heard of him. I knew he had a decent season in the complex, but like I wasn't super aware of him. And you were like, the stuff is loud. You can tell pretty quickly. Once we got to watch a few starts of his, like the stuff was loud and there's still a lot of room and refining to do there. But what did you just make of his first, full professional season for being so young and still having pretty solid results for a guy who is very much still a work in progress, I think?
Yeah, I think that he was tested, and that's going to help a lot being so young in A-ball, being tested and facing adversity and opportunity throughout the season early on. He had a couple of really rough outings in the month of May that he had to go through and say, listen, like something's got to give. He really worked this season on fastball slider and that 1-2 punch. The fastball's got some life. The slider is definitely his devastating pitch. But what I saw from Reyes this season is a pitcher that was able to get through it no matter what. And that's very valuable. You talk about a very capable pitcher. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Aldrin Batista coming through here in Kannapolis. Just that kind of same mindset of just get through the innings. No, it's not going to be 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. No, it's not going to be 18-inch breaks on sliders. But very capable arm and tested in many different ways. You saw him move to the bullpen and pitch no more than 3 innings for the later portion of the season. And I think that having that, okay, these are your 3 innings. Don't worry about anything else. We're not even going to let you go out for a 4th. Don't ask. Having that mentality and just keeping with it at his age, again, is super impressive for single A.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I thought the same thing of him this year. Any other pitchers in that staff that were there throughout the season? I want to ask about one guy later who got there later in the year. But in terms of the guys that were there for the majority of the season, any other pitchers that you feel like kind of took a step forward in just who they are as a player this season?
Yeah, I mean, we would be remiss without mentioning Grant Umberger. Absolutely unbelievable season for Grant. Really somebody that wasn't on many radars at all and entering the season. He joined us about a week in up in Lynchburg and just kind of went to work. Was a bullpen arm to start, came in for a couple of innings just almost as a ramp up. And then I feel like once everything clicked in May and the pitching staff looked at him and they said, okay, well, we can throw you out for a starter. So then he really found his footing as a starter. You could see a switch flip when he became a starter because it is a different mentality, right? Going in and saying, okay, I got to try to get through as much as I can in this many pitches or this many innings. Having that switch flip really helped him. And I think you saw a very, very capable lefty with a lot of life on the fastball and a changeup that was catching everybody off guard just because he didn't change his delivery. It's a very repeatable motion and just racked up strikeouts all season. Very impressive stuff.
Yeah.
What about in the bullpen? It's a long season, and those relievers, they have good stretches and bad stretches. But we had a couple of guys I thought who really stood out over the course of the year. Who'd you like in particular?
Yeah, I think you saw. I think you saw a lot of guys meet a lot of adversity from the bullpen. That was kind of the Achilles heel of the Ballers this season was the bullpen. It seemed like every time the starters would go 5 innings, 6 innings, and then the bullpen would go, okay, can we just get the bullpen to hold on? And it was really one of those seasons where the bullpen dictated a lot of these games, and you saw a lot of growth, not necessarily in 2 innings, 6 strikeout outings. But you saw guys get out of tough spots. Hale Sims was super impressive this year with that. I think Hale went on a stretch through July and August where he didn't allow a run over, it was 7 or 8 outings in 2 months of time frame. It was very impressive. Hale Sims, obviously not going to be, your top prospect or anything like that, but just a really efficient arm that impressed. I think a guy like Pierce George really showed up this year with the velocity on the fastball. And you saw life from him. You saw flashes of what he could do as a guy that didn't pitch a lot in college. I was super impressed with Blake Shepherdson. I think it takes a lot of fortitude and a lot of mental strength to do what he did, coming in and having three of probably the roughest outings I've ever seen in the month of April, going on the development list for a month, and then coming back and not allowing a run until August was super impressive. Blake really was a guy that I was impressed with. Again, another arm that life on the fastball, repeatable motion, kind of a sneaky motion where he just kind of swings through it and allows the ball to go towards the plate. Just a guy that you could tell was very mature and was able to get guys out of the plate. A lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. The last arm I want to ask you particularly about, Mathias Lacombe, and you can correct me on the spelling or pronunciation because I still don't know if I have it down. I've tried like 4 times and I'm still not sure if I got it. This guy, we were getting pretty rave reviews about from the Complex League. I had seen some numbers. We'd seen a couple clips here and there of like what he was doing in Arizona. French-born international player, drafted in 2023 after going to community college. Right, super interesting just story here, regardless of the player. We'll hear all these rave reviews about Arizona. Gets to Kannapolis. Yeah, there was some ups and downs. It wasn't perfect, but the stuff jumps off the page a little bit with him. And someone who, is a little bit older for the level, of course, has had a unique development track because of his circumstances. But there's a lot of reason to believe there's something here with him. What did you make of Mathias?
Yeah, I was super impressed. Mathias really shows what he can do every time. Really fun guy to talk to and just bounce questions off real quick. I know Jeff talked to him a couple of weeks ago when the season was wrapping up here, and it was hilarious because there was an appearance that he had, just as an example, where he had an appearance where he was struggling. He was trying to get out of a rough first inning. He was walking guys. He allowed a couple runs, and then he came out in the second inning, and from then on, just looked unhittable, unreal stuff. And Jeff asked him, he was like, well, what'd you do? What happened? What changed? And Mathias goes, I was aiming at the strike zone in the first inning. I adjusted and started aiming at the batter because he was pulling everything. So it's just those little funky things that these guys do where it's like, okay, making those little adjustments is super huge. And yeah, Mathias might be old for the level, but you see the pitchability, you see the life on the fastball. The breaking ball is there as well. Mathias is just a really standout dude. Another great memory I'll have of him from the season was we have our annual Starry Night here in Kannapolis where we raise tens of thousands of dollars for our Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. I remember it was the first week he was home. He hadn't pitched yet here at home, and he was starting the next day. And I was like, okay, like he's gonna want to get out of here quick type thing. Nope, he's sitting out in the outfield with nobody else out there, just sitting there. And he comes walking back in, and I just go, "Hey, Mathias, you good?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm just soaking it all in." Like you can really feel the appreciation that he has for being here. It's a great story. Being a French national righty here in the Sox org. And obviously the stuff jumps off the table. His fastball and his breaking ball are impressive, and you see the pitchability. So really fun stuff, and should be exciting to watch him for years to come.
Hey, Dan, at that fundraiser, this is what I purchased.
There you go.
Nice.
A base signed by all of the ballers.
There you go.
But it was for good cause, and it was fun to have a actual baseball base in my man cave.
There you go.
That's pretty awesome.
I didn't
even see that yet, Jeff. That's cool.
So every August, we start to see some of the draftees show up, and this year was no different. We had about 4 or 5 guys. A couple of them had took a little time to adjust, but a couple of them were really impressive right out of the gate. Can you speak to a couple of those guys?
Yeah, for sure. The guys that got here in August were a lot of fun to watch. I think the immediate guy that jumps off the numbers to you here is Eli Brown. Just the aptitude he has for getting on base, the stolen bases, kind of that 1-2 punch that late in the year this team found its identity and you knew what they were doing and nobody could stop them for anything. It was a lot of fun to watch. Jordan Sprinkle in the leadoff spot, gets on base, he's going to steal. Eli Brown, your next guy up, contact batter, going to put the ball in play. and then your power bats, your Wolkow and your Anthony DePino, who we'll talk about in a second. But Eli Brown was really impressive, really mature, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Anthony DePino, power bat. You saw a lot of athletic ability from him. Coming from Rhode Island, 7th rounder. Played first base for us a lot in the later portions of the season. Really fun guy to watch, and just a good dude for sure. Numbers didn't jump off the table for anybody, but Caleb Freeman is so much fun to watch, and so he's such a baseball player. And when I say that, he just loves the game, and you see those intangibles on a daily basis of the extra work he's putting in and the effort he has. Really is fun to watch him. He's a very high energy player. He gets in the batter's box and he is locked in, and it's rare to see it, but he's fired up. He is in the box. He gets a fastball upstairs that's too high. He is going to sit on it, and he's going to stare you down if you're on the mound and not give an inch. It's really fun to watch. Really excited to see what he does over these next couple of years. Should probably see him back in Kannapolis, I would imagine, just because of the numbers. But some of the other guys, you see Colby Shelton come through. Obviously, didn't have the best of times here in Kannapolis in the later portion of the season with the bat, but you saw the skills. They're there, and I think that the White Sox did a fine job in finding him out of the University of Florida. Galvin, Tausig, some of these other guys showed up and just made their presence felt, and it should be a lot of fun to welcome these guys back next season.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was just gonna agree with you about your observation about Freeman. I got a Jacob Burt vibe from him. Play with your hair on fire.
Yeah. And then you've got all these other guys that are going to come from that class, right? You got a little taste of the 2025 class, but hypothetically next season you could be getting, the top 2 picks in the draft being 2 high schoolers, and Billy Carlson and Jaden Fauske. That's a whole nother layer to that, is that you get, you've experienced this many times, but it's a really cool thing about the single A level is you get the draft class guys, you get a handful at the end of the year when they're drafted. And then usually the following year you get a whole nother batch from that draft class, and particularly a lot of high schoolers at that point. And then you get to see some of the younger guys, some of the higher end picks that might, take a little longer, but you're getting a ton of those 2025 guys come 26.
Yeah, especially in A ball, the emphasis whenever it's draft day is whenever you see the picks come through, less the first round unless it's a college guy, but more the middle rounds. Start studying up the next day because you're going to get them eventually. And that's something I did this year, and it was very helpful to me. But really fun to see. And these guys are obviously, you can see what the White Sox did. It was very impressive with this draft. A lot of college guys and a lot of high school talent at the top. But it's going to be a lot of fun to see them when they get here.
Yeah, and start studying up this offseason, man, because you just if you liked Caleb Bonemer, you're definitely going to like Billy Carlson and Jaden Fauske. So you got some fun guys on the way, that's for sure. We've talked about them plenty on our show, so it's going to be really cool. Who are some of the guys you're looking at when you look at this team? You saw, obviously, Caleb go to high A, Braden makes it all the way to double A. Who are some of the guys from your roster that haven't necessarily gotten that bump yet that you are really excited to not necessarily watch every day because they won't be on with you anymore, but to see kind of rise up the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really fun to see some of these guys move up and continue to develop. It's one of the best parts of my job is seeing guys move up and continue to progress in their career, because it's just fun. Like, these guys are chasing their dreams, and it's super fun. I think 2 guys that we didn't talk about quite yet, but are either going to be back or will have moved on. One of the guys I'd say is Javier Mogollon, a guy that battled some adversity, battled some injury this year, but you saw the talent, you saw the ability this season when he was in the lineup. Showed a little bit of power for his stature and for his size. Was impressive. You saw him play the second base position. You saw him play a little bit of short. I think he did make it a game or 2 at third as well, which was impressive to see. Mogollon was a very capable ball player throughout the season. Rony Hernandez is a guy that I am enamored by, just for the pure factor of, I think his bat is very, very underrated in the system. Pretty good catcher, but his bat and his patience at the plate, a guy that as a teenager was one of only 3 players in 2024 to finish with more walks than strikeouts. and you look at who the other two guys were in 2024, it was Jason Chorio, who's now in the Guardians organ, is pretty solid. Then it's Kevin McGonigal, who's a top consensus top 3 prospect in baseball. So you see the patience there. You see the ability to get on base. And for a guy like that to get on base, it's super valuable. And to be a capable bat like that as a catcher is so huge.
Yeah, I like that shout there. I'm excited to see with Ronnie move up. I think he also came a long way as a catcher this season. When he did catch, I think you could see him kind of growing into that role a little bit more. So I'd love to see him catch more at the Winston at the high level, just because I think he can handle that at this point. I think last year you were still seeing the catching really take its time, just developing as a young guy. But I do think you saw that defense get to a point where now you feel really comfortable with him catching at the high level next season potentially.
Yeah.
One other guy. I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just going to talk about a guy who is one of my favorites, and I think he was one of your favorites when he was in Kannapolis, which was Ryan Burroughs. And, we saw him struggle for a season and a half, and, there was I thought, well, maybe this just isn't going to happen. But, man, middle of the year, talk about the switch being flipped. He really kind of figured it out and has done pretty well and continued to do well, I thought, at High A. I know you're a fan of his as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, Ryan's another one of those guys that the White Sox just found a whole bunch of them, but another guy that's just mature and just has that ability to impact the game. I think that, taking the job that he did of, hey, sure, I'll play a little bit of left field and see where I can help the team out. I think that speaks volumes to who Ryan Burroughs is as a human being, as a ball player. His abilities there. He's a big game player that shows up in big games, and when the opportunity presents itself, he's going to make an impact. You saw a little bit of the power. He hit the ball hard until his call up. Even leading up to his call up, I should say. He hit the ball hard, and defensively, and took a big step forward this year. I think that was something that he wanted to work on this season, was taking that defensive step forward, and even acquiring the new position of playing outfield was big. So having that ability. Lyle Miller Green's another guy that we'd be remiss to talk about, another guy that had his struggles in Winston when he got called up. But, man, when he was here, he was hitting the cover off the ball. They hit 2 homers that were over 440 in his first month of the season. Just a guy that has ridiculous power. And obviously he was a very steady person at first base throughout the season.
Big dude. Yeah. He can hold it down. As we kind of wrap here and just look towards the future, obviously you are focused on Kannapolis, but I'm sure you keep up with the White Sox, of course. You made a trip to Chicago. First of all, how was the trip to Chicago? And then second of all, what do you just see from the White Sox this season? I know it was a building season, and we feel really, really solid about the progress made this year.
Yeah.
Let me just say, for people who are following along, that was not just a trip to Chicago.
Yes.
That was a chance to sit in the booth in Chicago with the White Sox announcers. So my hat's off to you. That must have been a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, it was unreal. I was in Chicago for all of 48 hours, but it was such an energetic 48 hours, such a great experience. Take the aspects of, finally got a Chicago dog, finally got the Italian beef, but then you get to the ballpark and it's business from there. And just, I think that I did the smart thing. I was able to just go to a game as a fan, just sit in the stands and take it all in. And then I got in the booth on Saturday and got to sit with Len Casper and Darren Jackson for the whole game and just soak everything up. That's something that I've learned throughout my career, is just, get in the room and just soak everything up and ask questions and be obnoxious. It's okay to ask questions and be obnoxious. Like that's what gets you places. So I think that one of the big takeaways that I got from my time in Chicago is this White Sox team has so much energy about it. I mean, there's just an energy in that ballpark during games that it's tough to even describe. Seeing guys that were here not long ago in Kannapolis, and or the starting shortstop Colson Montgomery. Everyone is enamored with Colson, as they should be. The guy is one of the best hitters in the world. Not even close in my mind. Chicago loves them some Chase Mindroth, that's for sure. I gathered that too, and it's hard not to like the guy. Definitely a live wire bat in the leadoff spot. Kyle Teal, another guy that comes to mind of just an impact bat in the lineup. There's so much youth and there's so much talent on the South Side. It's so fun to watch, and it really, seeing that in action live in Chicago really puts it into perspective of like, okay, we're kind of starting everything out here in Kannapolis. So when they get to Chicago, we're creating that energy. So really fun time to be a White Sox fan. I'll say that. Being in the organization and being around, the Rovers and the managers and even the top prospects and these guys that are just scrapping for an opportunity to continue in the White Sox org. It's super fun. It's a great organization that I'm really proud to be a part of in a small capacity. I really don't do anything other than just sit there and talk to myself for 3 hours at a time. But it's really fun, and there's a great energy on the South Side.
We know you do a lot more than that, by the way. You're not fooling anybody, Dan. But yeah, we love to hear that. That's awesome. It's exciting. It's an exciting time. It's been a rough few years, and I still think that the ability, we try to emphasize this on our show all the time, the ability to look at the positives, to be excited, to enjoy the fact that like this is a game we all love. This is a game these guys love playing. The organization is determined to get better, and it is getting better, and we feel very excited about the future as well. So it's good to hear that you got that vibe too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's infectious energy in Chicago. That's for sure.
What did you think of the Chicago dog? 1 out of 10.
Oh, 100%. That was fantastic. It was so good. I'm been a Chicago dog guy for a long time, but I never been to Chicago and had a Chicago dog. So that was really good. Had a good Italian beef sandwich.
Did you get pizza?
I did get pizza. Gino's East was pretty good.
Okay.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
That's a lot of boxes, Dan.
Well, that's one thing that I do when I travel, man. I don't hit chain restaurants. I only hit local spots when I travel. That's
how it's done.
That's the way I roll. I was sure to leave some time to just walk around Chicago and just again soak it all in, take it in, take the energy, and just learn something. And I think that it's crazy to talk. I'm talking in circles on a tangent, but one thing that I took away that I'm even just I'm in shock with is just the major league mindset. And I think that is something that I immediately took back, and I said, okay, it's a completely different world. It's so different. I was laughing with one of the execs from the White Sox who was showing me around. I said, yeah, Kannapolis is about 50,000 people. And he went, 50,000 people, that's it? And I was like, yeah, you probably have about 50,000 people in these 3 or 4 blocks around the ballpark. Like, it's so different. And it's a different world, but man alive, can't wait to be a part of it one day.
Yeah. That's awesome, Dan. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for taking so much time to talk to us as always. If you ever get sick of us, you're welcome to tell us, but we always love having you on. So we appreciate it, man. And we're looking forward to the 2026 season. Yeah.
Likewise. You ever get sick of me, just let me know.
Dan, I hope you and your bride have a great off season. And it'll be March before you know it. And I'll be knocking at your door again and look forward to it.
Hopefully not at my door. Hopefully at the broadcast. Let's get that straight. But
right.
Yeah,
boundaries.
We're gonna enjoy some Dolphins football, and then it'll be baseball season again before we know it.
There we go, man. Appreciate you, Dan, as always. Thank you.
Have a